we're going to practice, in a sense, dividing our b term and squaring it. So we're just going to ignore everything else, but we're going to practice dividing by 2 and then squaring. So I started off with some that are fairly easy, that are even, because 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then we're just going to square the 9 to make 81. And this is to help practice for completing the square. So now I want to take this 30 divided by 2, square it, is 225. So 30 divided by 2 is 15. But what about this one? 2 won't go into 1 evenly. So I leave it as a 1/2, but I'm going to square 1/2. And the way I do that is I take numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. So it's just 1/4. So here, I'm going to do the same thing with the 7. I won't reduce. So basically, I'm going to square both of these. But basically, what's going to happen is 2 times 2 is going to be 4 every time. But 7 times 7 is 49. So I'm just going to end up with the top number squared over 4. Oh, because this will be 15 over 2. So I'm going to square the 15, which is 225, and 2 squared is 4. Same thing here, 9 over 2. So if it's an odd number, I'm just going to square still the number and put it over 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. And that's going to be the same every time on these. If you have an odd number, and 25 times 25 is 625 divided by 4. I just then divided all these by 2 and squared it. The even ones are pretty straightforward. Odd ones are just going to be fractions with a half. But what happens when we have numbers like this? Well, think about this here. How do you divide fractions? When you divide by 2, thank you, Diana Ross. We multiply by the reciprocal. We take 2 and flip it upside down where it's 1/2. So we're just going to take 1/4 times 1/2, which is 1/8. Now I will square that, which will be 1 times 1 is 1, and the 8 will be 64. So I'm going to come up here and take 3/5 times 1/2, which will be 3/10. And if you take 3/10 and square it, remember square the numerator and denominator is 9 over 100. Going to come here and take 5/9 times 1/2, which will be 5 over 18. Square to be 25 over 324. Now, before I go any further, do you notice a pattern here? What do you notice about these fractions when I multiply by 1/2? The numerator did not change. The only thing that changed was the denominator doubled. So you mean I could keep this as 5/12? Yeah, because the 6 is going to double, and now I can square the 5/12. So this one here, the 11 will stay the same, and 13 will double to 26. Exactly. Which then makes 121 over 676. That's how you would do these at third fraction. So we don't have to make things any harder than that to make them work. This was practice of finding the dividing our b term in our completing the square format.